different views. And I say I was trained properly. I'm a former leader of students at a university in Zimbabwe. And when you are a president of students at university, students are equals with you. You should go in the same, after addressing them, you go in the same class. And you write an assignment exam, they even perform better than you. But you are their leader. You are their president. So when you give them a chance, they will speak so freely, uncontrollable. And I was trained, so I have no problem with these things. So I'm not giving a speech, I'm giving a talk. This whole issue of legislature and civil society, indeed, is rare in most countries to see civil society and parliamentarians engaging. The reason is why. The issue is why. And in going to issues of this topic, I think the purpose is to say, civil society says, you are embedded in the communities and in touch with the people. So you know the pulse in communities of what people think. That's what you say, and that's what you sell. And that's why you are funded. Because you are funded because you claim that you know really the temperatures in the homes and what people think. On the other hand, we have the parliament, legislature. And if we go backwards into history and literature, the parliament, there was no parliament. There was only a king. The king had all the powers, what we separated. Most people talk of separation of powers, but don't know where separated from who. Separated from the king. If you go back, those who wrote on this topic, the Montesquieu of this world, when they wrote this, there was in the 17th century, 16th, 17th, an upheaval, and I'm also a king, actually, a true one. But I say this with a lot of pride. With a lot of pride. Now, I want to challenge what we are trying to do. I've seen the program. The king, in those years, but these are not kings in Africa, these are kings in Europe. That's all it happened. They had all the powers, as you know. What we call judicial powers today was in the office of the king. What we call legislative powers was in the office of the king. What we call executive was in the office of the king. And as you know, there were rebellions. And even some kings were even executed by people who protested that the king is too powerful. And indeed, those kings, if you hear what they did, the aristocrats, they owned all the land. They were the richest. And their families around, the royal families were the richest. I'm happy that I'm very poor. I'm not like those. So people said the king would, the same person, make judicial determinations. The same king would pass laws through decrees. The same king was the super administrator, like the president today. So, but in the way these kings also ruled, did not please the citizens. And people protested in Europe mainly. And they said, no, can we separate these powers? Can we, that's why we have the separation of powers today. Can we separate these powers? They cannot be vested in one office, one individual. No. And you know the reasons for separation. That the judiciary should be independent. The parliament also should be independent, and the executive, right? And this is basically why we are gathered here. We are saying people protested, they even killed some kings. And now we are operating in the model of the balance of powers. Legislature, judiciary, and executive. Balance of powers, separation of powers, arms of the state. But today we are focusing on the issue of the legislature. And if you want to say it openly, that yes, we elect people, so we should have no civil society. If the parliaments were very effective, if parliamentarians were everywhere where the civil society is, if parliamentarians knew the temperature in the communities, if they knew what people think and the emotions, but the truth is that parliaments have not lived to that expectation. And that's where now there's a gap that civil society comes in and says, we know what the people are saying. Even against the one who was elected. And you have taken that space effectively. And you are so appreciated. Sometimes funded by better than the parliaments themselves. So in other words, you are an informal parliament. You are an informal parliament, whereby you are occupying, and I'm provoking you. I'll sit here, I'll listen to your response to what I'm saying. I won't run away. I'm provoking you that there's a space you simply, yours, the roles that you are playing, and I know sometimes you don't want to talk like that yourselves. Those that you are playing would be ordinarily the role of the MP. If MPs were really effective 100%, there would be no role for civil society. But the truth is that MPs do not do that. Parliaments are not doing that. And we have a number of examples that I can give you to show that even parliamentarians have failed their voters. And I hope along the way, there will be quite a serious discussion of what actually do we mean by representative? You see the way it is used. Representative means what? So democracy means what? We are all aware of a number of situations where people have demonstrated against laws passed by the parliament. Their own MPs, they are sitting there. After that, people go into the streets. In almost all countries, you have had 1 or 2 laws. If we look at 30 years, 40 years, 50 years ago, there should have been 1 or 2 laws where people said, no, where is this coming from? We don't like this. They object. So the question is, if the MPs are there to represent their people, why is it that Parliament is speaking different language from the citizens? And this is where the civil society gap now comes in. That there is sometimes what we call a chasm, quite a big gap between the MPs or legislature and the people. And one of the, and there are many examples, is the issue of Burkina Faso around 2008. Anyone from Burkina Faso here? None. Anyway, it's under military rule, but we are told it's a good military rule. I don't know. Democracy versus military rule. It's another topic civil society should bring tomorrow to debate. But for Burkina Faso around 2008, there was a president who had served 2 terms, and the 2 terms were coming to an end. The president managed, and I want to use the word manipulate, the parliamentarians to amend the constitution, because the constitution provided for 2 terms only. The president wanted to continue, so he went in their case, Parliament can amend the constitution. So he might manipulate the Parliament to extend the term of the president. And the Parliament unanimously did so. You know what happened? Did you hear what happened? The whole country rose up in protest. The whole country said, no. You MPs, who told you that we want to extend the term of the president or to amend the constitution? Where did you get this? People walked, demonstrated, and went to Parliament and put the Parliament on fire. The whole building was on fire. This is the big question, why we are here. That's the big question. That although we may claim to represent the people, after all, we are not doing it. And the whole issue of representation should now come to a critique. What is representation? So why, one of the takeaways from this workshop, when you go back, if you didn't, you say the Burkina Faso case about democracy and representation, the Burkina Faso case, how could MPs do something that the people said is wrong? Now, I come back to what is written here. We are Pan-African Parliament, the Continental Parliament. And in fact, when you look at our rule book, rules of Pan-African Parliament, it says the people's voice. We are the people's voice. Is that true? Listen. Basic documents of the Pan-African Parliament. That's where the rules are. On top here, one Africa, one voice. So we also claim to be the people's voice. Just like you claim to be the people who know the civil society, who know. These are claims. We're all claiming. And I don't think we are doing it well. And that's why we are here. So, the real problem, why you say dialogue between legislatures and civil society, is to say, how can we work with the 2 forces, parliaments and civil society, together to ensure that we ensure inclusive governance, democratic governance. And I wish we were to work on a book, all of us, one book. We write a book to try and educate everybody in the world that the whole problem that we have today in the world, and that's why Africa remains poor, is the issue of people-centered development. We talk about it in nice words, but to find the cases of people-centered development, very rare. Where if you go anywhere, and I remember there was a function in Zimbabwe and the vice president came to officiate. And you are civil society. If there's any project or development program, when you go to local communities, sometimes they sing in praise, show happiness. Listen to who is being praised. Sometimes there's this director of an NGO. Sometimes even the government, even whoever, they are praising somebody who did, yes, sometimes funded, but sometimes it's who did the thinking for them, everything. And they are just recipients of what someone did. The thinking, the design, everything. And then you have a problem, because once you leave after 10 years, go back, that project no longer exists. And that's the problem of democratic governance. That when you think for the people, and then they become passive recipients of knowledge, then you are the author, it's your book, read it. I'm within your topic. You may not see it. You may not see that I'm within your topic, which is renewing. Why renewing dialogue? The word renewing provokes. It means there's something wrong. And I'm just trying to find out things that are wrong. That we have not been honest. Whether it's government elected by the people, whether it's MPs, even civil society sometimes, that do the people really do the thinking, or we think for them? Now, there is the Africa Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, for example. Yeah, maybe yourselves here, if you can. If I were to ask, if we were to break and say, can you write each one 2 pages on what Agenda 2063 is, and what are the components, and what it's trying to achieve by when? Look, if we get half of you getting 50%, we'll be very lucky. Because Agenda 2063 of the AU, fine, it's there. But most people don't even know about it. Or they have to have heard about it. They cannot unpack it. Because it was authored somewhere by some people somewhere. And it is their elitist. And that's why we are gathered here. To ask the question, do the people know about what the agenda is all about? Do they know their roles? What is their input into this whole thing? You find that there's a problem if you do that. That's African Union. And the Pan-African Parliament is the legislative arm of the African Union. And even people, if you ask them about what is the AU, what does it, they don't know much about. Yeah, there's something called Africa AU, and we hear heads of state sometimes, they meet, they go to these big meetings. And some say they just take photographs every year and they go back. So when you check the photograph for heads of state, 2000, and another one, and 5 and 10, you find that what is changing really are the faces. Because some have died, or they've lost elections, and they're out of power. So just different new faces. When the AU was formed, and it's called the OAU, in 1963, it had no parliament. It had no parliament. It was only like an executive wing. No parliament, no judiciary. But after 10 years, some started debating whether the OAU was serious without a legislative arm. It went through 80s, 91, Abuja. They agreed that no, there is need for a parliament. And then there are others, they argued. Among the heads of state themselves, some argued that no, how can we have an organization of unity? It's more of a government of the continent. Without a parliament, without judiciary, without civil society. So you are very important. Within the OAU, they argued, debated that no, we need these components. Parliament is missing, judiciary is missing, civil society is missing. And they agreed to amend the protocols and include these arms. And the main argument was, look, an OAU without a parliament is an OAU of governments, but not citizens. It's quoting from the heads of states themselves. And then PAP came into existence 2004. But you can see that PAP came in, the Africa Court came in, and ECOSOC, the civil society organ, you know that. You know ECOSOC very well. So the acknowledgement that you are important in civil society is even at that high level of heads of state. You never demonstrated to the OAU to say, please, can there be ECOSOC? Can there be ECOSOC? No. Among themselves, they agreed that there be a civil society organ of the OAU, okay? But it became AU by the time 2004, they launched PAP, they launched Africa Code, they launched ECOSOC. I'm emphasizing the point that you are a critical organization within society, just like Parliament is. So then PAP was established, so that it's not only a union of member states, but also a union of African citizens. So why was PAP established? I'll give you what I'm reading, it can help also. Article 3 F of what is called the Constitutive Act of the African Union says, and I quote, the AU is there to promote democratic principles and institutions, popular participation, and good governance. And then, again, without a parliament, without the people's elected representatives who keep the union firmly attuned to the needs of society, the people at grassroots level, the union will not be able to uphold its principles of participation of African peoples in the activities of the union. So the parliament is meant to provide for people to participate. And then I can continue going on. And that is why the Pan-African Parliament was established in Article 4C of of the Constitutive Act provides even more, that we want the participation of African peoples in the activities of the Union. But if that is true, why is it that people don't know about Agenda 2063? And then PAP was created and entrusted with a mandate of ensuring the full participation of African peoples in the economic development and integration of the continent. And then it was given all these functions, a list of 9. I'll read them so that when you ask me questions, you'll be happy. That 1, the Pan-African Parliament will facilitate the effective implementation of policies and objectives of the African Union. Okay, the OAU had transformed in 2000 from OAU into AU. So now I'm reading about AU. And then number 2, promote the principles of human rights and democracy in Africa. Number 3, encourage good governance, transparency, and accountability in member states. And number 4, familiarize the peoples of Africa with the objectives and policies aimed at integrating the African continent within the framework of the establishment of the African Union. Number 5, peace. Promote peace, security, and stability. Number 6, contribute to a more prosperous future for the peoples of Africa by promoting collective self-reliance and economic recovery. Number 7, facilitate cooperation and development in Africa. Number 8, strengthen continental solidarity and build a sense of common destiny among the peoples of Africa. And 9, facilitate cooperation among regional economic communities and their parliamentary fora. We are supposed to ensure cooperation even amongst parliaments, regional, national. I will not go into details as to how we do this, but we're allowed to look at the budget of the AU, examine, discuss, and express opinion on any matter. We discuss budget to work towards harmonization of laws of member states, make recommendations, and contributing to the attainment of the objectives of the AU, requests for officials of the AU to attend PAP sessions and produce documents and assist in the discharge of its duties, promote the programs, objectives, and constituencies of member states, promote the coordination and harmonization of policies, measures, programs, and activities, adopt its rules of procedure, perform that. So, then under Agenda 2063, PAP plays a very central role in what we call aspirations of the AU. Now, aspiration number 3 is good governance, democracy, and respect for human rights. Aspiration number 5, Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, values, and ethics. 6, people-driven development. Now, PAP and the Pemo is a partnership for accountability and inclusive governance. And mainly that's why we are here. And we are here to strengthen democratic governance and accountability, and we'll work with civil society to promote transparency, fighting corruption, monitoring public institutions by engaging directly with the PAP. As has been mentioned, we did convene some first ever civil society engagement in the Pan-African Parliament at continental level with parliamentarians, and that the obvious things of promoting citizens' participation, enhancing policy formulation, yeah, that is very important. That when these policies are being developed or formulated. Usually it is some people in the workshop in the office, people are not consulted. Of course, we are supposed to push the agenda 2063. We need to create a culture of dialogue and partnerships. So in this regard, we have an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding between PAP and the Center for Human Rights. We are serious. And thank you for this gathering, because it means we are moving to see how we can promote our partnership. Pan-African Parliament is well placed, as you know. It's a continental parliament. It was formed in terms of the law of the AU. We are not just some association of people that have wished that as parliamentarians of Africa, can we meet? No, this is funded by member states. Each country every year pays money to the AU that makes PAP operate. So your countries are funding Pan-African Parliament. Although now the level of funding is such that we are in the intensive care. Almost dying, the money is just not there. We have a serious problem, but I didn't come here to talk about problems of PAP. I came here to see how we can work together. But this is a challenge to you that this is like your national parliament. This is the parliament of the continent, to which all parliaments are members, and each one sends 5 MPs from each country. So we should work together. May I also take this opportunity to thank you, I want to say you. When we had a crisis at Pan-African Parliament, 2023, August to March 2024, of leadership at PAP, as president, I had gone for elections, and the law says you are only a member of Pan-African Parliament if during that time when you are a member in your national parliament. So when you go for elections at PAP, it means your parliament dissolves, your term ends as a member in your national parliament. So when you are going for elections, you seek a new mandate, you are sworn in as a new member. So in my case also, 2023 August, we went for elections in Zimbabwe. And by the very fact that Parliament is dissolved and they swear in as a new member, I am no longer PAP president. So I have to seek a new mandate. But that period when I went for elections and to wait for being re-sworn in, a lot of things happened. A lot of acrimony, noise, and all that. And you people also issued a statement which was very critical, because you also said, you wrote a letter to the African Union policy organs calling for adequate funding and adherence to the provisions of the PAP protocol. Meaning, can we follow the law? And when you say protocol, it means every protocol is ratified by member states. So all countries, it means they ratify, they sign and ratify. They are the ones who put in those laws. So please, can you respect the laws? When you say rule of law. Anyway, there are challenges, of course, which that's why we are here, to make sure that our engagement works and it produces results. Pan-African Parliament, MOU, with the civil society forums, and including this University Center for Human Rights. Of course, we need more powers as a parliament to help people in this. Some countries still feel that, oh, if you give much power to PAP, maybe they may make decisions that are against my country, or some laws against that my country does not promote. We are sovereign states. Leave us alone to do what we want. But the EU Parliament is gone beyond. The EU Parliament makes laws for all the members to comply, and those are enforceable in all the member states. But it took them 31 years as a parliament, in the EU Parliament, to reach that stage. We are only 21 years old. So we believe before or by the time we also this 31, we will have all those powers that the EU Parliament has. We hope it will happen also in Africa. And once that happens, Africa will be better. There will be no fragmentation of this country visa. That's why today you have the Schengen visa. It's because of that arrangement where the EU agreed to be one bloc. And their parliament can make laws that are binding on all EU countries. And they are moving ahead. Economic policies, they agree that there's a bloc. This is how we should approach issues. And that's why today when you go to negotiate anything, whether WTO, whether the animal life and CITES about animals, whether you negotiate on what, you find that they are better organized as EU. We Africa, we are not even, if we are organized, I doubt. I've attended some of those things. You never have a common platform, even in climate change. So we have more problems. In that, some of the challenges that citizen engagement is often superficial or symbolic. And this whole word of consult, we consulted citizens, I think is more often than not is abused. You have already made your own position as a government or whatever, and then you pretend to consult with the people. When you already have most of the meetings we attend where you have a communique agreement, you know that agreement is written even before the meeting starts. And whoever is funding that meeting is funding it because they want an agreement or communicate with these words. So the workshop for 3 days is simply meant to be driven to those conclusions only. And then when they go away, we consulted. We consulted. Yet the people were simply ambushed into a certain corner. So even when we say consulting with the people, in most cases, no, it's not genuine. It's not real. And this is the duty of this forum, to say, are we really talking to the people in a genuine manner? And then one of the challenges is mistrust between government institutions and civil society in some countries and contexts. This is a perennial challenge. This is a perennial challenge. But at the end of the day, I want to say, why do governments mistrust civil society? But that mistrust is not only with you. Even as parliaments, institutions of the state, we are always fighting with the executive. Because this issue of oversighting, of monitoring, it's like a performance appraisal. All of you individually, you don't like performance appraisal. What you want is simply to be given 100%. To be subjected to, hey, but why, hey, you are not performing well. Sometimes you even become emotional. No, Mr. Boss, there was no money, there was no car, there was no this. You are being unfair to me. So Parliament everywhere in the world has seen some MPs even suspended from their political parties. Some fired from parliaments. Both ruling and the opposition parties. We have cases of MPs who try to speak their minds, and then the political party to which they belong says, our party policy or position is different. So I'm saying even Parliament is mistrusted sometimes because of MPs. But civil society, but the case of civil society is simply clear. you are accused of being funded by people that have a government or regime change agenda. True or false, we don't know. But I'm just saying, these are the allegations. So at the end of the day, you have problems with the governments. Sometimes people working for civil society, they also contest elections. In most cases, on the opposition side, they then win and become members of parliament. And then say, look, you see, he was using civil society to try and come into parliament, the opposing government. But all said and done, I've said, even the parliament MPs elected have also not lived to the expectations of the people. Civil society sometimes, and I'm saying sometimes, I can say 8 times, has also not lived to its expectations. And I'm not saying everybody, individuals, somewhere, somehow. But Pan-African Parliament, we are committed. We remain very committed and available. Even this meeting, when I heard of these dates, I said, will I be possible? Is it possible to be on the 16th, to be in Pretoria? It was like, no, I can't, because I would have just come from Ethiopia, climate change, back, and I go to Zimbabwe, preparing to go to the United Nations General Assembly this week. Can I then be in Pretoria? But when I looked at who is inviting me, civil society, Center for Human Rights, a topic, I arrived last night. I abandoned everything. I want to be there. In fact, I even said, no, let me allow. There's no bureau member. Why can't I let the clerk? I said, no, let me myself be there. I want to be there in person as president of PAP, so that when we say we are serious to strengthen our oversight on the operations of our government in AU, I say it not through a speech read by someone, but looking at my face and making that commitment that we want to work with you and oversight our MPs, oversight our government. So we are here and support the domestication and implementation of AU instruments and protocols, including Agenda 2063, and we enhance the monitoring and networks of our 5 regions on the continent, and champion gender equality, youth inclusion, and the marginalized voices in our legislative processes. Please keep reminding us and pushing us. Please, civil society, keep reminding us and pushing us where there are such gaps that our people end up burning parliament buildings. Tell us that people are not happy. We want collectively to remain the voice of the people. And we can only do that by living to our mantra of one Africa, one voice. And the voices are yours. You are also a voice. Can we now hear and exchange? Thank you very much.
The president has been on his feet for almost an hour. A round of applause for him. Yeah. while Mr. President repositioned himself to make for a better interactive side with the next few minutes we've got, it's important to note that our engagement with the Pan-African Parliament as part of the agenda for this conference is in various folds. You know, today we've had the high-level opportunity to have the President address us with some remarks highlighting a lot of very interesting things, as he put it in his own words, to provoke our minds on various areas. Of course, there is opportunity, as you can see, to also later have a session where the team at the Pan-African Parliament would help us better appreciate and understand entry points for us as civil society organizations to engage with the Pan-African Parliament. And of course, tomorrow we have the opportunity to visit the Pan-African Parliament premises to be able to see what goes on in there. I am particularly excited about the opportunity to also visit the Pan-African Parliament premises. For many of us parliamentary monitoring civil society organizations, I've been privileged to visit a number of times. On one of the occasions, as I took a taxi from Midrand into Pretoria, Mr. President, the taxi driver, who is a Midrand-based taxi driver, asked me, "What happens in that premises, sir?" You know, and this is a taxi driver who is based in Midrand. So while we drove off, I tried to, with my understanding of what the Pan-African Parliament does, explain to him how that is a continental parliament and its premises. And I think it provides an opportunity for us to increase more the visibility that the Pan-African Parliament has. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we're going to take a few minutes as we are trying to catch up with time on our program to make it interactive while we have the President with us. In his various engagements to provoke our thoughts, he speaks to the issue of how the role of civil society can be akin to the role that Parliament plays, and that we all have common interests. He seemed to be a believer of the school of thought, that where parliaments are stronger, civil society will have less work to do. And in areas where parliaments are less efficient, it increases the workload that civil society will have to do. Of course, he describes civil society as informal parliaments in his thought provocation. He speaks to some of the challenges of the Pan-African Parliament, some of the engagement with civil society. But at the end, he actually asked us to look him in his face and speak to them when things aren't going right. I'm sure we'll do exactly that as part of the engagements today. And of course, when things are going right, to still look them in the face and speak to them on that. He calls on us to keep reminding them as our representatives of the things that may not be going fine, so that we wouldn't end up in some of the challenging moments that we've had between citizens and parliaments and how they work. So at this point, I'll open the floor. Colleagues, you have your microphones in front of you. Once I catch, I get the attention, I catch you catch my eye, I would seek to call you, and then you can use the microphone. There is simultaneous interpretation in English, French, and Portuguese, and so we can engage on all of them, and then we can take it up from there. So I think I've seen the first hand up. Yes, please go ahead. And it would be best to also introduce yourself. Name, country, perhaps institution. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Samuel Harrison Kujo. I am from Ghana. I work with the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. My question to you is based on the issue of corruption, good governance, and Africa. And I'm asking what the Pan-African Parliament is doing. We look at the Corruption Perception Index, and our scores are not too great. across the continent, we've seen democratically elected leaders massaging their constitutions so they run third and fourth terms, and I haven't heard the Pan-African Parliament call those leaders to order and ask them to step back and allow the ethos of democracy to run. So if you are our agents, if you are our representatives, what are you saying on our behalf? Or is it that the issues of corruption and good governance is too big or too localized for the Pan-African Parliament to pick it up? Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. So from Ghana, I see the next hand up on the same table. I think that's from Benin. So,
oui, ça. Ok, bonjour.
bonjour.
Et je remercie le président pour sa brillante présentation. Il a posé un diagnostic clair qui montre que les élus, une fois élus, ils sont éloignés de la base. Le diagnostic est clair. Et pourtant, lorsqu'on prend le règlement intérieur du Parlement panafricain, en son article 4, le point C dit que ce Parlement doit participer à toutes les activités de sensibilisation, activités d'éducation des citoyens. Nous sommes société civile, nous défendons la communauté. Le politique défend la communauté. Donc nous avons un dénominateur commun qui est la défense de la communauté. Mais nous procédons par divers moyens pour y parvenir. En tant que Parlement panafricain, lorsqu'on constate que les députés, une fois élus, s'écartent de l'objectif, est-ce qu'il y a une résolution qui a été votée pour amener les parlementaires à vraiment faire ce travail d'éducation de la communauté? Et ma dernière préoccupation va dans le sens de... On parle de parlement ouvert, un parlement où les citoyens peuvent venir écouter, suivre. C'est vrai, on dit que les sessions sont publiques, ouvertes au public, mais en Afrique, personne n'a le temps d'aller écouter. Même les parlements locaux, c'est-à-dire les mairies, les communes, au niveau des collectivités territoriales, les gens n'ont même pas le temps d'aller suivre. Ce n'est pas au Parlement, en haut là-bas, qu'ils iront pour suivre. Est-ce qu'il y a des mécanismes qui sont pris pour encourager la participation des citoyens aux activités parlementaires? Merci.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur. And so I will take from Guinea-Bissau. Oui, Vladimir.
Muito boa tarde. Obrigado pelo convite. O meu nome é Vladimir Sano. Eu venho de Guiné-Bissau. Meus parabéns pela brilhante apresentação do presidente, mas despertou uma série de curiosidade dentro da minha mente. Mas antes gostaria de contextualizar uma pequena parte. Este conceito de Pan-África foi introduzido na Guiné-Bissau a partir de 2023 pelo nosso irmão Samuel Ben, que teve a oportunidade de estiver no meu país, dar formação para a sociedade civil e órgãos de comunicação social e alguns funcionários do parlamento. E também tive a oportunidade de visitar a instalação do Parlamento de Guiné e encontrar com alguns lideranças do Parlamento do meu país. A partir deste momento, esta responsabilidade ficou no nosso ombro para seguir com o barco, mas não foi fácil. Ouvindo o presidente, e comecei a meditar sobre essa questão e a ver desafios para que todos nós podem já ouvir falar e saber da situação de instabilidade de Guiné-Bissau. Acredito que um país com um parlamento de um ano de legislatura e foi derrubado, ou, aliás, posso ainda dizer, um país que nunca concluiu a sua legislatura. Então eu já comecei a pensar como e onde vamos começar. Daqui a uns 2 meses vamos para a nova eleição, para constituir novamente um parlamento. Presidente, a minha questão, pela sua experiência e capacidade, que experiência podemos levar para a Guiné-Bissau, de facto, para ajudar a reforçar a nossa democracia e ter um parlamento aberto e engajado com o povo e a sociedade civil do meu país?
All right, thank you very much. I think just so that we can be able to have enough questions for the president to ask. I've seen the second group, but we'll take the first round. One on what PAP is doing on good governance, corruption, in Africa, PAP's role in it, Mr. President. The other also on public education, awareness creation, how PAP itself is promoting open parliaments. And then, of course, Vladimir spoke about the very nature of how parliaments have been disrupted in his country, Guinea-Bissau, and how not much seems to be happening from institutions like the PAP in these kinds of contexts. What says you, sir?
Thank you very much. Corruption, I want to agree with you, is some call it a cancer on the continent. It's very, very, very true. Capital projects that are implemented or proposed, dam construction, almost maybe 1 billion, 2 billion US dollars, or several hundreds of millions. Road construction, or some big infrastructure project is a source of leakage from public funds. I agree, it's a big problem. In some countries, when a budget is passed in parliament and 10 billion for this and that project, some individuals already know that, so this next year I'll have, out of that 10 million or 20, 100 million, at least 60 is mine. They even start planning on activities for them. And they are assured that they will get money from public. And as you know, they will inflate prices. I was leading a case of Botswana last week, where some procurement of something that was supposed to cost about maybe 150 million pula, but it ended up 750 million pula, from 150 to 700. When government went back to do proper research and assessment, they found that the suppliers were actually quoting 150. But ultimately from the ministry, they claim 750 from government. And that situation has killed our continent. They make everything more expensive, and it has drained our fiscus. This is a big problem. Various governments have taken different measures. but it goes even into government, civil servants, politicians themselves. The African Union, there's a parliament like ourselves, but they have what they call a advisory board on corruption. Advisory board on corruption, which is supposed to look at the issues of corruption on the continent. I don't see much work they've done. That is true. Because of this issue of sovereignty, each member state will not allow them to try and interfere. This issue of sovereignty also has its own advantages politically and disadvantages, because sometimes it's used to try and cover up for certain wrongs. The Pan-African Parliament, what we do in terms of mandate, because we have another advisory board on corruption. So when we work, we are very careful not to be accused of encroaching into the business of another organ or agency of the AU. So we make resolutions, we debate in Parliament. But we don't go specifically now to Ghana and ask the government why they are doing this. But the advisory board of the AU has that mandate. We as parliamentarians, when we get, there will be stories from the media or certain issues, we just introduce a motion. And then we debate, we resolve. We send our resolutions or recommendations to the AU, Assembly of Heads of State, for them to act. But in a number of cases, the AU doesn't do much. Because within the AU family, it means you are exposing your brother. This is very true. I have seen it several times on human rights issues. You know, we have a whole Human Rights Commission. And it writes reports. And whoever writes it may get into trouble. But you are established by law to report on such issues. But some countries protest viciously, protest. Why did you write that paragraph that in my country something like that happened? I tell you, it becomes very hot. The issue of corruption, yes, should be fought from the top parliaments and also from the ground. Civil society, our people should also fight corruption. Yes, our people should go to the streets. Where the effects, they should go to the streets. It can work. Yes, our people should also themselves. Okay, thank you for this. I'm being reminded that in July this year, we as PAP signed an MOU with APNAC to conduct joint activities to monitor and oversee issues of corruption. APNAC is Africa Association, is it?
Yeah, Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption.
Yes, against corruption. We hope using this route we may also expose. But I want to say corruption is still a big issue on the continent. and let's work together. Maybe those are some of the topics that we can start discussing and engaging on with APNAC, civil society. Go on the ground and expose, because we have no power ourselves to arrest. But it can be done through public opinion and say, no, enough is enough. We are aware on this issue. Please, can you come out clean? A bit complicated for governments to admit that there's been corruption. The president of Botswana is doing it because luckily this took place when he was not president. It's easier to say the ex-president, under his leadership, this thing happened. But those things that happen, and when you are the president, you really want those things exposed also. My reply can only go this far and say, can we all come together? Pan-African Parliament has been holding a number of activities in all the 5 regions in response to the issue of awareness. We've done our part. We hold conferences, workshops, but more so in terms of awareness. We have 5 MPs from each country, except those that are on suspension from the African Union. And this includes Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Guinea, it's Guinea-Conakry, not Bissau. Sorry? Guinea-Conakry is also on suspension. Sudan, the Gabon is back now after democratic elections. So all these other countries that are not suspended, we have 5 MPs who come to PAP. We debate all sorts of issues across the continent. Those 5 MPs go back to the national parliaments and they introduce motions, we call them, on what PAP resolved on. And these things are now discussed at the national parliament. Some of them are even covered by the media in that country. And then the MP has an obligation for the national parliament to take that debate issue to the constituents, to the grassroots. Of course, not all MPs do those things, but that is the line that we follow to ensure that what PAP is doing and even informing people of the AU, those MPs go to the national parliament and introduce motions and then go to their communities and address them and tell them that the AU is doing these things. So that's how we do it, but our MPs may be failing us at national level. Then the issue of PAP being a defender, together with civil society, being defenders of communities, the poor, is correct, and that's why we also claim that we are a voice of the people. And indeed, that's our role, to protect the vulnerable groups of our society. You know them. I need not list them. The vulnerable groups of our society. PAP exists to do that. We've even introduced model laws, drafted model laws for countries to domesticate where possible, because they don't take everything, to ensure that certain rights, emotions, aspirations of people are protected. We have more than almost 20 now on gender. The one on gender equality is actually already, I think in November, that one will be ready. The model law on gender equality, on youth, on various other topics. So yes, We make these resolutions, debate. They go back to the national parliament. They go, each MP takes them back to their communities, to their constituencies. Then those resolutions go to the member states, to the Assembly of States. Our presidents, we expect them to then implement them. So, and as we do all these things, we work with civil society. Only last week, this model on gender that PAP has developed was subjected last week in Accra to scrutiny by yourselves in Accra. So we go to various places, say, is this good for the people? So when we do a law or model law, it's PAP. We don't just, as MPs in a closed room in Midrand, South Africa, say we have this law. No, we have to test it. It goes out to member states through MPs. It goes out to certain groups. We go to this country, invite society. I think he's confirming. Thank you very much. He's confirming he attended in Accra, only last week, the model law on gender equality in Accra by Pan-African Parliament based in South Africa. But there you are. It was presented in Accra, and civil society were the many participants. So we are together in defending. We also call upon you in civil society to bring issues to PAP, the issue of entry point. This is one big issue that we would want you to do. And we are pleading with you, civil society. And things that you know affect our people. And there is need for reform. There's need for further scrutiny. There's need for redress or attention of member states. Please, as usual, you put in writing whether it's French, Arabic. In Pan-African Parliament, we use 5 languages. But you can write in any other language, you can still find the translation. But we use French, Arabic, English, Portuguese, Kiswahili. Please, please don't complain out there. Give us and say, please, Pan-African Parliament, either we call for the platform, which is in the protocol. It says Pan-African Parliament is a platform for the citizens of this continent. And I think for civil society, that's a very important statement for you. Pan-African Parliament, the protocols that establishes Pan-African Parliament is a platform for the citizens. So the media, when they think they are being arrested too much by governments for publishing stories, they come to PAP and we held some media conference where they say, no, PAP, please tell the heads of state, we are suffering. It's a platform, you are welcome. Civil society on any topic, come, we'll give you, as part of our session, maybe a whole morning, depending on the magnitude of issues, or a whole day at PAP, or 2 days, maybe just before the main session. We invite MPs, okay, we're starting our session on the 29th, but we want on the 28th and 7th, all of you MPs come. We engage with civil society. We listen to them. We debate. So I'm really happy that you have mentioned that we need to work and defend issues together. Come, then out of that, PAP will then make resolutions as a parliament. The PAP sessions are open to the public, but people do not listen to parliamentary activities. Okay, we have YouTube, live, Jeff, stand up. He is in charge of publicity at PAP. Can you say tell us what mechanisms we use as Pan-African Parliament to share with the public.
Thank you, Excellency. Indeed, you have already indicated that our sessions, statutory meetings are open to the public. So what we do is we try to relay that through our various digital platforms. And over the past few years, we've ensured that our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter are available for live streaming of all the sessions of Parliament. We have also ensured that we engage with the media. We have different ways of doing that. We have self-sponsored media who actually can travel to the Pan-African Parliament, or those that are locally based, who can come and cover. Whenever the budget allows, we try as much as we can to allocate for numbers of media on a rotation basis to come and also cover activities of the Pan-African Parliament. And of course, we constantly try to update through media articles and on our different platforms. And we constantly, of course, looking for different ways to innovate and ensure that we keep you posted on what is going on. So, Excellency, in a nutshell, that's how we try to make sure that those who can't travel to Midrand kept abreast with the latest developments on what's going on at the Pan-African Parliament.
Thank you. So you don't need to physically come to Midrand, but when you have the capacity, please do so. We invite all media. We are not like in countries where we say this is opposition media. This is to us any, you are welcome. If you want to come physically, and I want to make this announcement that you are all invited. If you have a media house or some whatever form, you are welcome. Keep in touch with us as PAP. Those three people sitting over there, 1, 2, 3, they are staff of PAP. This one is the chief of staff or the cabinet chief at PAP. The one without hair. This one. And then the lady in the middle, was dressed Pan-African. He's just actually in charge of monitoring and all these things. So she may want to assist on the monitoring issues. And the one who stood up is in charge, Jeff. You may want to get his contacts. He's not running away, he'll be here. Get the contacts. He should tell you about what is happening on the next session. Now we have our committee statutory meetings taking place. Official 29, but we start about 27. You can follow activities there. And there's civil society. Some people call you NGOs. Of course, you are not all NGOs, of course. Civil society is in many forms. But sometimes you raise money better than ourselves. People listen to you sometimes. Raise money and say, write a proposal and say, ours is to ensure that the public knows what is happening at the Pan-African Parliament so that they are able also to make an input in terms of the protocol, which you can ask us, we can even give it to you, that they are a platform for the public. So please, I want these 3 media houses, organizations, to be present at PAP during their sitting. And please, I look for funding. I think you are likely to get a lot of funding. Because now in the modern world, the democratic world, everybody wants citizens to be able to know and to know what governments are doing, what our public institutions are doing, Pan-African Parliament is doing, and the people can then speak out. So come, or sometimes listen to what is happening at PAP, but have entry point. I think the entry point. If it's media related, Jeff is here, is there. If you know Joy, the director of the bureau, Marimo, sitting there over there. And as I say, there's no hair, just so that he listens more than everyone else. He pays attention. The head is cool. And then there's the clerk of parliament. If you doubt, just that to the clerk of Pan-African Parliament. Yes, but you are welcome. I know the entry point issue in the government, sometimes you come through the permanent secretary. Even to us, be free. Because you may say, Marimoy or Jeff, you write, they don't reply. Not that they don't, usually they are very good. But we hear of cases where some people in some organizations who will say they don't respond. Presidents of PAP write. I will still discuss it with the relevant staff. Director of the Bureau, Chief of Cabinet, a clerk of parliament, please feel free. If they don't reply, write to my office. I wrote to so-and-so up to now, this late. I tell you, we should be acted upon. Thank you.
Very well.
So please, you are welcome to work with us. Don't complain from a distance. Complain face to face with us. And at your next forum, invite me and say, you said in Pretoria that date, when you left, we did this, it didn't happen. No ways, I challenge you. What I'm saying is coming from my heart, not from a piece of paper. You saw me, I didn't deliver a speech. I could only refer to a piece of paper. Because I believe this culture of reading speeches, sometimes people don't speak from their hearts. They are speaking from a piece of paper. So we are honest people. Now the issue of Guinea-Bissau, thank you, congratulated the president of PAP, which is me, for the good things you saw in me. Thank you very much. Now, who is that who from Guinea-Bissau who congratulated me? You. I want to see you because I'm very happy. You know what? If you want someone to perform, even for you, don't spend too much time criticizing them. One of our major authors in leadership is written saying, when you praise a person, do it loudly so that even those outside can hear that someone is being praised in this room. When you criticize, don't shout too much. Your voice should not be, the volume should not be very high. But that, just make sure that the person is able to get your message. You motivate them to listen to you. Now, when you shout outside, some people don't even know the issue. You are more like fighting politics. Tell the person that, please, can you rectify this? Not public grandstanding. Sometimes it doesn't work. So you've praised me loudly in public and you've done the right thing. If there's anything to criticize, do it, but don't shout too much. But I'll hear you. The issue of elections in Guinea-Bissau. You said Guinea-Bissau, eh? That you need elections so that there's democracy. Currently, in Africa, we have Mali as a problem. A coup, the soldiers took over. In fact, they come back, another group of soldiers overthrew the first soldiers to take power. They came in. Usually, AU gives a timeline between 6 months to about 18 months. If you, for some reason you take over power, please go back to democratic elections. Don't stay for too long. But Mali, I think 2021. We are now in 2025. Nothing, no election. Burkina Faso, the same. But the issue of Burkina Faso is proving to be even very different, because President Traore has come up with a model which we don't know, because we don't come from that country. There's no one from Burkina Faso. They say it's very dynamic. We don't know on the ground what dynamism, what people are enjoying. So another country, no elections. Niger, no elections. They took over power. The African Union suspends a country that is in that situation of military rule or undemocratic takeover of power. But now there's a even louder debate. Some are saying, no, it's a mistake to suspend them and get them out of the AU. Because you now no longer have a line to discuss with them and to tell them, look, stop this. Now they are out. It's like a child who has stolen someone's property. Instead of counseling them, rehabilitating them, you kick them out. They then disappear. You don't even know where they are. They then steal even more. So maybe it was a mistake. Some think so, but it was not a mistake. And those countries under coup or military rule, now they are coming together, you have heard, in ECOWAS, West Africa. They are trying to form their own form of regional bloc. So it's more complicated. And the AU has no power now. Okay, it writes, reminds them. So we only wish that all these countries that are being governed undemocratically do so. Our role is PAP, and we do it a lot. We condemn, we debate, we resolve on all these countries. We tell them, please, go back to democratic governance. But we hear you. We hear your concerns, and you are right. We need to go back to democratic governance. But lastly on this one, what has happened, and in the case of Mali, each time the military takes over, what they do is they dissolve parliament, the voice of the people. They dissolve parliament, they dissolve government, those two things. Immediately when a coup is announced, within 24 hours they will tell you we've dissolved parliament. Because they know that if you leave parliament on, some will be brave enough to attack you from parliament and say this coup is bad. So they make sure that all those voices of the people are silenced. Parliament becomes a victim. And in some cases, like in Mali, our own civil society like yourselves, become part of the military government. We can give you a lot of literature on that. In Mali, what they do is they form what they call it, all these military people, they form what is called a transitional government, transitional parliament. And they appoint people to that parliament as military themselves. Some MPs are retained, some mostly are out, they pick. In the case of Mali, a number of civil society organizations activists were absorbed into this transitional parliament. And I think that the civil society should also debate, is it good, is it proper, when you are preaching yourselves democracy every day, human rights every day. Now when there's an opportunity to be a member of an illegal regime, just because you now want also to be called a member of parliament, you also jump on from civil society. You are now legitimizing that unconstitutional government. That is food for thought. It's yours. It tarnishes your image in civil society. It shows that you are not political. You are actually political. You are just waiting for an opportunity also to be part of a political establishment. I think I'm done. I've answered all the questions.
Very well. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And although I had, yes, a round of applause is in order. Although I had earlier seen the hand of our colleagues from Uganda and Niger, fortunately, like I indicated, I have indication that some of the comments that may follow suit will be more to dive deep into the entry points, which is also a factor for our conversation when we visit the Pan-African Parliament tomorrow. So we would reserve those for our physical attendance to the Pan-African Parliament tomorrow, where I know that the rest of the team in there, Jeffrey and the rest of the team, would support us in that. But Mr. President, I can also confirm that on the bit of the visibility, media engagement, and what have you, we've seen some strides in that regard so far as the Pan-African Parliament is concerned. Of course, as Oliver Twist, will continue to ask for more. But I'm aware of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Pan-African Parliament and the African Parliamentary Press Network under the auspices of the communications unit that has also now helped to have a lot more journalists from across the continent paying attention to the work that Pan-African Parliament does. But it still is not giving the kind of visibility that we would all have loved to have with the Pan-African Parliament. That's why I like some of the call to action that you have actually brought up in this meeting. And one of these calls, colleagues, is that the President has charged us to pay keen attention as parliamentary monitoring organizations to the outcomes of sessions of the Pan-African Parliament and what our members of parliament who represent us in Midrand come back home to report. So maybe before you leave this conference, all 29 countries, two things you must do. Let's be able to know the 5 individuals from our national parliament who are representing us at the Pan-African Parliament. You must leave this meeting knowing their names, and we must leave this meeting with the resolve that henceforth, as PMOs, we would be holding them to account on what exactly happens in Midrand and how they take forward the conversations. At Parliamentary Network Africa, Mr. President, we piloted a situation where the delegates from Ghana and the Gambia, after sessions 2 years ago, were subjected to a press engagement with the parliamentary press in Ghana, in Accra, and in Banjul to explain to the media what exactly they came to Midrand to do and how that took place, like what happened. First one was successful. Beyond the first, the MPs will no longer engage. And I think that these are some of the realities of some of these engagements, which sometimes, but I think it's a call to action, and as PMOs, we may want to leave this conference knowing that the 5 who represent our countries, we must know them first of all, and then start asking the questions. The PAP is actually currently going to start meeting for its permanent committee sittings, which is going to start arrivals and all of that later this week, right through to 4th October. When our MPs are back after 4th October, we need to ask them, what did you go to discuss in Midrand? And how are you ensuring that these conversations will come back, will be brought back home meaningfully? The second call to action is the President charging us to bring the issues that are of concern to us to the Pan-African Parliament. It is very interesting. I think tomorrow we'll learn more about it, how the committees of the Pan-African Parliament provide very great opportunity for individuals, organizations like us to present cases to them at committee sittings in a very, in a rather interesting manner, because these usually will not be thought of as something that happens, but once you engage with the Pan-African Parliament, you realize that there are opportunities to be able to put together some of our advocacy issues, some of the issues that we hold dear to specific committees of the Pan-African Parliament. And tomorrow we'll explore that more and how we can be able to enter on that. So, Mr. President, you can also have a commitment that this is something that we'll learn more about and we'll continue to engage on. The third and final call to action, Mr. President, I heard from your...
I'm so excited by your capacity. You seem to be very competent. Yeah, I'm excited with your competence. You know, civil society, the issue of entry point. Civil society, usually, even in national settings, you are just talking as if the media, somewhere there. No one really will say, okay, come. How do we address corruption? Tell us. Sometimes you do it and you even fear being arrested. We are talking too much. Fine. See, the issue that you have mentioned about committees is a very, very effective way for you to be even funded more. And when you write proposals, sometimes you don't know what to write. So how do I, you know, we have committees. And think of whether anything, agriculture, climate change, whatever, women, gender, youth, think of anything, industry, we have those committees. So if now you say my interest or our interest is on these topics, even on climate change, we have a committee here. We're just coming from Addis Ababa last week with that committee to participate in the summit on climate change. And those people are going to Brazil for COP30. So if like you decide on any topic that it goes up to the UN, you go to a committee at PAP on any topic. If you want youth, there's a youth caucus. Women is aware of it. Visa, immigration, trade, any topic. So your best entry point is two. One, link with the leadership level. It's even better. I know you link the committee, but the leadership should take you to a committee. It's much more effective and better. Then when the committees sit, they sit twice a year, around March, around August, September, now September. You make your own, in your own work plan as whoever you are. You then say every August, every March, we have these issues. And the 11th committees on human rights is there. We have a committee just on human rights at PAP. So if there are human rights issues, we then direct you to say, look, the chairperson, so the clerk, then you go to that committee and you do a presentation. They will never say, no, it's not possible. They will never say no. They will put you on the agenda during the committee session. And then they will listen to you as a committee. And the report will be generated from that discussion. That will be, they say, in March. When PAP meets now in plenary, depends between May, June, July, your report now comes on the floor, jointly with the committee. You made the committee in March, now you come together jointly to present. Committee chair will stand up, you can compliment. The end result during that May session will be a resolution or recommendation on a particular topic, where we say not the best example, maybe in Gambia or Ghana or even Zimbabwe come from, there are these issues where children, we have done research on the ground, children are being treated in this manner, or women are being deprived of this. That will be discussed at committee level. It will be presented in the main plenary. The plenary will then write and resolve on those issues. And that has to go to the heads of state. At least, whether they do anything or not, they will know that this issue of children is now hot. And by the time it is debated in the parliament, it's PAP, their ambassadors are already shivering. Then we invite the ambassador of that country, who is based in Pretoria, to come to PAP, to listen to what MPs are saying. It's a very effective way of being heard, or your people's voice to go through the system. So thank you, because you mentioned, I'm just saying, that is very good. We want to see you in committees participating in civil society, and then attending our sessions, listening to the debate on those issues, and even influence the recommendations. We influence them. We debate, but you can still write a draft and say, look, we seek such a recommendation on this particular topic. So about entry point. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the further elaboration. A round of applause again. So yes, Mr. President, we note these two calls of action, but the final one, which is something that you yourself have committed to also in your presentation, and I want to remind you, Mr. President, is the fact that you are
Thank you, Excellency. So I was just reminding His Excellency that in addition to making resolutions to the Assembly of Heads of State, where CSOs come in with particular reports on a thematic issue, PAP can also, through the committees, send its committees for fact-finding visits on a particular issue that we have brought in by CSOs. For example, there was an issue of female genital mutilation that was brought to the attention of the Pan-African Parliament. And PAP sent its committees to Addis Ababa to go and investigate on that issue. And legislation was changed to stop female genital mutilation because of the actions that were taken by the Pan-African Parliament after that report had come to them from CSOs.
very well noted.
And we can take them jointly. A joint mission where you are saying there's this issue taking place of child labor in Côte d'Ivoire. I'm talking of what we actually did. There was an issue of serious child labor in Côte d'Ivoire. Our committee on labor was dispatched on a fact-finding mission to Côte d'Ivoire and did their findings. Reports, I tell you now, we hear that was stopped. But we can undertake these missions because you have brought it to us. And we find that there's an issue of interest. We can take them jointly. You can be part of the PAP delegation, PAP with civil society membership. But we don't have money to pay for you. You pay for yourselves. You pay for yourselves. But I know when you are writing your proposals, these things attract money. We're on a mission with Pan-African Parliament. We as civil society have unearthed, or this thing is happening. So come forward. Thank you, Secretary General.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And in fact, on that note of collaboration, that was the third point I was going to make, that you have committed, Mr. President, in your presentation while you were answering, that you hope that, or you look forward to a better strengthened relationship between civil society and the Pan-African Parliament than we currently have. And that if next year by this time the relationship is not stronger, we should call you out in our conferences. Mr. President, we have noted it down. We know that we'll be working with your office and the team through the PAP CSO Forum, the APMON, and we look forward to a better working relationship between the Pan-African Parliament and civil society going forward. Colleagues, on this note, I think it is appropriate to give a bigger round of applause to wrap up this session. And in doing so, may I invite the chairperson for the Africa PMO Network, Caroline, to move a vote of thanks to the president, of course, the team that came with him.
Does that mean you are saying, Phil, I should go? I'm joking.
We are saying,
I'm still around.
Yeah, we are saying pause for this session so that we get to inform you more in the next session. But allow me, Your Excellency, to say this, that, normally in civil society parlance, we like talking about speaking truth to power. But here this morning, we've not only had the opportunity to speak, to dialogue, most importantly, to listen from the other side. And this really is the epitome of what we are doing here this morning, having a dialogue and listening to each other and not speaking at each other. And I think when we started the introductions in the morning, we did say that that's the objective of this meeting. We've also, Mr. President, talked about renewing the trust between citizens and their representatives. But I think in addition to what Sami has said, what you have challenged us here is to also find mechanisms of strengthening that relationship between CSOs, citizens, and parliamentarians. Most importantly, thank you to the Pan-African Parliament for walking the talk on civil society engagement. I had the pleasure, and I can attest to what you've said, I had the pleasure of engaging with the Gender Committee in 2023 when we were discussing what the model gender parity law would look like. And we do know that even as it's been taken around the countries, with OA in Kenya, I think last year in 2024, and in Ghana earlier this year, and we've had opportunities to give views, and we also had the opportunity to join the Civil Society Forum at the plenary again in 2023. So to really say that we have the evidence, as you've spoken on many of the laws, we do hope that given that our work as parliamentary monitoring organizations is modeled, given that our work as PMOs really relies a lot on access to information laws. We do hope that that's one area that the countries across the continent will be pushed to not only have access to information laws, which some of the countries have, but make sure that the relevant regulations and the content of those laws are such that it's possible to be effective. The good book tells us to come and reason. Come, let us reason together. And I think that's what we've done here this morning with the Pan-African Parliament. We are really grateful for the opportunity to be able to do so. Thank you, Mr. President, for the time and for being, very forthcoming with information, for giving us insights as to what we could do better, challenging us also in terms of how we can engage more effectively. And we do look forward to continued engagement. And as you have said, we hope that not only will the Pan-African Parliament be present at our next conference, but also when we have regional meetings or when PAP is in our respective countries, we hope that you can be able to reach out to the networks in those present so that in addition to meeting parliaments in country, you could also be able to have sessions with civil society organizations, but also joint civil society engagement with members from those respective countries. So with those few remarks, where I come from, we have a clap that we call the 5 factorial. I don't know that this is a common thing across the continent, but the way it goes is you start with 5 claps, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we end with a bang. Mr. President deserves that. So may I request that we stand and give that clap as our vote of thanks? Are we ready? Not hungry, stretched out. You need to stretch your hands far and wide because this is going to be big, deserves a big clap. So we are going to start with 5. So you start with 5 claps. We go to 4, 3, 2, 1, and we do it fast as people who are really energized and looking forward to engage with PAP. Ready? Ready? Let's go. 5, 4, It's not harmonized. It needs to be harmonized. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President, and we look forward to having you around even as we
Now,
continue.
before you leave,
Yes.
we are here to think.
Eh? Yeah.
Now you listen and we think. You know, you have said something that we are also learning and thinking we could improve. Sometimes we are in West Africa, it's pap over something. Sometimes we're in East Africa. I think I want my director here to take note. It may be good that when we're in a particular region, civil society is also mobilized, and we have an engagement like this at that level, at a regional
Yes.
level. Just because already the president of PAP is
In that
he
country.
has a mission in that particular area. I think that would be another improvement, so that we don't just fly them to South Africa to meet these people. Sometimes we meet them in their own country, they organize, and we are more specific to that particular country. It's our improvement. I'm calling upon, I'm just saying, the director, I think we may inform through their structures. I think by now we know who is who. So if you want to go to West Africa, the central part of it. Yeah, I think we should do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Nairobi looks forward to hosting you soon.
Very well. Very well. Thank you very much, Caroline. We're so grateful. Let's take note of the following announcement. It was a good icebreaker for all of us, the exercise to do the clap. Of course, the interpreters and all of us need to get some break at this point, just so that we can energize also for the next session. We're going to go on our lunch break after we have done the photo session with the President of the Pan-African Parliament. We're going to go on our lunch break. Please note that in our visit to the Pan-African Parliament tomorrow, we will have that conversation around the entry points for effective citizen and civil society engagement under the mandate of the Pan-African Parliament. So that would be the session we'll have with the Secretariat while we are there in the Pan-African Parliament. And then once we are back from the break, which we are supposed to be seated by 1:45. 1:45. So please let's take note. When we are back from the break, we will take the session on bridging the democratic gap, lessons learned for strengthening the relationships between the PAP and civil society. So now there's been institutions that have engaged with the PAP. What have been the lessons? Some of them started coming up here. So among us as civil society, what has been some of our own lessons learned? We'll have that conversation just after the break. We need to do some adjustment to our programming. We'll do well to do that, but I'm sure that we've had a great morning and we'll continue to have even better times in the course of the day. So please, let's just regroup again like we did earlier. We'll take a photo with the president and then we'll go have lunch. We'll come back at 1:45 and the sessions continue. The comms team, please help us to reorganize the place for the... While we organize ourselves, lunch will be on the rooftop on the 5th floor. We can use the elevator. It gives you lunchtime with a great view of Pretoria from the rooftop of the 5th floor.
you. And so really the idea for this week, as I said, is for us to want to build networks, because I think that's very important, especially at this time where we are